Finance Committee. Tonight is Thursday, April 3rd, 2020, and the time is 5:30. Before I begin, let me just read some of these notices. Due to the ongoing national and state public health emergency caused by the global coronavirus pandemic, City of New London public meetings will be held virtually. Meeting agenda can be found at the New London government website, and audio recordings of this meeting will be posted on the city website within 7 days of the meeting. Also, any public comment can be submitted to our administrative assistant, Jennifer Starts, at jstarts@newlondonct.org. With that said, I'm going to start calling out councilors. President Pro Tem Alma Nartates.
Present.
Thank you. Councilor Goodwin.
Present. Thank you.
Councilor Dice.
Here.
Councilor Sadi. Yep. You're welcome, Councilor Dice. Councilor Sadi.
Councilor Sadi is here.
Thank you, Councilor Sadi. Councilor Booker.
Here.
Okay. I also believe that the mayor is here tonight, and also the director of finances. And at this time, I'm going to be asking the Director of Office of Development and Planning, Director Reyes, to begin his presentation. You have 3 minutes, sir, to speak to us, and then after that, we'll have the councilors ask questions. Your tab is tab number, does anybody remember that was number?
Oh, this is Councilor Dice. It's number 42, 43, 51, 52, and 53.
President Leming speaking. Thank you, Councilor Dice. You may proceed, Director Reyes.
Perfect. Thank you. Can everyone hear me clearly? All right, wonderful. Thank you, Council President Dominguez, and the other members of Council for giving me the time this evening to present the budget and be able to hear to answer any questions. I do want to take a portion of the 3 minutes you've given me just to thank my staff. The staff and the majority of this budget is who they kind of represent and who this budget is kind of carved after, and the efforts that they bring every day. I'm very proud of them. The talent and the dedication that they bring to the work day every day is incredible. So kudos to them, especially in this very difficult, unprecedented time. They have adjusted well and still providing excellent service to our business owners, our residents, and to visitors of New London. A couple highlights that I wanted to bring up, and each kind of something key that's in every department. One is our CBDG office is led by Tom Bombria and has done an amazing job this fiscal year and getting out over $300,000 in revolving loans, which equate to over $2 million of construction just in the downtown area. So that I thought that was worth highlighting some of those efforts. Over $1 million this fiscal year already from our building department in fees. So they are doing well. Our blight officers doing a tremendous job getting around the city and addressing those concerns that's been hampering us for many years. Our Office of Development and Planning putting together a pipeline of work that is over $800 million in construction, and those are big capital projects that speak to the increase of the grand list, revenues, tax, taking the burden off the taxpayers by increasing the value of properties and those developments. So just wanted to just make sure that the members of the ODP building department and CBDG are highlighted this evening, and their efforts are announced with a proud voice this evening. Finally, we are in unprecedented times, and the budget takes that into consideration. the increase of work, I would say the pre-virus had our staff working at full capacity and beyond. And I know in any other time frames, most offices will be looking for growth, but our office will stay lean. We'll remain with the same staff count and members. And I will make sure, as director of ODP, the building department, and CBDG, that we do not miss a beat. We know we have challenges ahead, but I am absolutely confident with the people in my corner that we will do great things and see New London get out of our current state. So with that, I yield my time back to you, President Dominguez.
President Dominguez speaking. Thank you, Director Reyes. At this time, I'm going to ask Councilor Booker if he has any questions for Director Reyes.
Yes, this is Councilor Booker. I do have 2 questions for Director Reyes. Tab 42. What was the other purchase services used for in previous years? There's a reduction of $50,560 to $0.
And I'll let David I'll try to answer this. But if David, if you find that I missed the mark on this, just chime in. Part of the finance director's efforts is try to start to consolidate some things that my office was budgeting that would probably be more geared for other departments, especially with software is one of those things. So there has been a consolidation of items that are in other pools of money, but what I have in front of me may be a little bit different from what you have in front of you, but the reason the $50,000 is not in there is because our office no longer is budgeting that item.
Okay, and also, thank you. And also, Director Reyes is tab 42. This is Councilor Booker. What will the $75,000 be used for in marketing?
All right, I'm glad you brought that up. Marketing is a big issue, and I'll try to be quick with it, but I think it's important for people to understand the importance of marketing in when it comes from ODP's perspective. When I took this job a couple years ago, the biggest threat that we had for our city was we allowed wolves essentially to create the narrative. Marketing takes that right back. It takes that control back. It allows the city to truly get actual and factual information out there for people to know the realities and truth that we are a flourishing city, that we are on the rise and we're growing, and that helps recruit development and investment in our city. And marketing and having a robust budget for marketing helps in doing that. That return on the investment is grand, and I'll be more than happy to speak in some of the details on what we plan to use on that as well. The previous 2 years, we have increased our outreach with a new website, e-blasts, newsletters, developers manuals. Now we are taking the next step in social media, finding partners who can influence, social media influencers. We are working on an app right now for all our business owners, tourists, and residents that will be on their smartphone, called My Town, and it will be a city app. We plan on rolling out more content. If you're familiar with how social media works, content is very key. So the marketing budget will allow the city to truly kind of get into the 21st century and really capture the audience of investors, and also, again, like I said before, control that narrative of who we truly are.
Thank you very much, Director Reyes, for your thorough response. And this is Councilor Booker. Thank you.
President Dominguez speaking. Thank you, Councilor Booker. At this time, I'm going to ask Councilor Sadi if you have any questions.
First, I'd like to make a comment that in this presentation, we have 4 or 5 different pages to do in a half hour. I don't think that's enough time to do it. But given that, I will focus on the first page, which is tab number 42, which is ODP administration. And this first question will go to Finance Director McBride. We have a 2020 budget of $500,460. That budget has been increased by $32,592. Last night we were talking about a 2% pay raise. If my math doesn't fail me, a 2% pay raise would be about $12,912. And so I'm just wondering, why do we have a $32,000 increase in this line item?
This is Director McBride. I'm just pulling up the file. If you could just bear with me a minute.
David, I also mentioned that, just a reminder, Elizabeth Nersaire is now part of ODP. I'm not sure if her salary was also 100% as part of this. Also, the economic development position went from 25%, I believe, CBDG down to 20%. So those are two items as well that would increase the salaries and payroll.
Yes, that was Director Reyes, for the record, speaking.
Yep.
Responding, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that. I will have to provide some additional details, but it looks like it's three different components. The most significant one was the addition of Elizabeth Nersaire. But I'm going to get some more detail here, and I'll come back to that answer if you wouldn't mind giving me some time, Councilor Sada.
Thank you very much.
President Dominguez speaking. That was Director McBride responding to the question. Go ahead, Councilor Sada.
My second question is in line with Councilor Booker's. Again, I don't know if there's a clerical error, but 2000 marketing 2020 budget is 26.5. Proposed is 75. You're showing that as a $75,000 increase, when actually I believe it's a $49,000 or $48,500 increase.
It's a $25,000 increase from last year. The last year's budget was a $50,000 line item, and I think you may be looking at the audit. Maybe it's the audit line. After 6 months, I think the 26,000 is essentially at that point what was currently spent.
No, I do apologize. There actually is a blank space in the 20 budget, and you're correct. The 26.5 is proposed. Is what you've used to date. So you're saying that was 50,000 last year?
Correct. Yeah, last year's budget was 50.
And year to date, 26.5 has been used. 550.
Yeah, at the 6 months at December, I believe. Yeah, halfway.
So the proposed would be 75, which would be a $25,000 increase. And on my line item, I have it as a $75,000 increase.
Correct. Yep, it's a $25,000 increase from last year.
And then if you travel all the way back down to proposed increases of 103,000, that should actually be 25,000 less then.
All right, I'll let the finance director.
Yeah, this is Director McBride. Let me try to summarize what we're trying to achieve with this. If you look at last year, there was $50,000. In last year's budget, there was $50,000, $650 into other purchase services, which is kind of a unknown name without proper classification. So what we tried to do is realign the budget into numbers that would make a little more sense for people, in that a lot of the primary costs that are in the economic development area are marketing and advertising. So what we did is we commingled and matched up the funds between advertising, marketing, other professional services, and we reduced the money from other purchase services. But in summary, this is what I will tell you. If you added up all of the components, the components from last year, they were $50,000 is what was budgeted. This year's budget totals $98,000, which is the $90,000, the $15,000, the $75,000, and the $7,800. So in a nutshell, if you subtract out the $50,000 that was reduced, the overall budget for, call it marketing, advertising, professional services has gone up $48,000. I think that's what you're trying to determine what's going up and down. The budgeting in terms of the account structure was mainly for everyone's understanding to know what's marketing, what's advertising, what's in outside professional service. But overall, again, I just want to clarify, the budget's up $48,000 in those three areas. The reason they are up in those areas are for some of the reasons that Director Reyes indicated. There's some money for Economic Development Commission workshops, potentially developing an Economic Commission, and he can elaborate more on these. Force of $5,000. But as he indicated, what I have for detailed support is mainly for marketing and advertising, is a social media campaign for $15,000, a podcast campaign for $12,000, and a relationship with Quinn and Mary for all of the marketing efforts that they do throughout the year, and moving forward with the city app for $12,000. So hopefully that answers some of the questions. It's a $48,000 or $50,000 increase specifically relating to marketing and advertising in the economic development area.
If you wouldn't mind this is Councilor Sadi, if you wouldn't mind reducing that to writing and emailing that to us, because I appreciate what you just said, but boy, you spoke very fast.
I will certainly do that. And just so everyone knows, the comments I've been taking the last couple nights, I will be summarizing them, sending all those information out to everyone all into one email. So you'll receive all of the previous questions and comments as well as the one you've just requested.
Councilor Sadi, Council President Dominguez, I have used up my 2 questions, but I do have a few more questions later on.
President Dominguez speaking. Thank you, Councilor Sadi. We'll return back to you. Hopefully we have time. All right. With that said, I'm going to ask President Pro Tem Nartates, do you have any questions?
Yes, I do. Thank you, President Dominguez. Getting back to the marketing line item, this is a question for Director Reyes. I heard the Director of Finance say that included Quinn and Harry, so we're not going to see any fees from Quinn and Harry anywhere else in this budget. Is that correct?
Correct. That's included. Yep.
Okay. Thank you. This is President Pro Tem Nartates. And the other question is that we've got that $72,000 vacant position in your department. Is the plan to fill that this fiscal year?
No. So that yeah, in this fiscal year. Are you saying the current fiscal year?
Director Reyes is speaking.
Yeah. Sorry. This is yes. Director Reyes. Are you? I'm sorry, Councilor. Are you speaking in our current fiscal year or our budgeted fiscal year that we're talking about?
Budgeted.
Budgeted. Yes.
Budgeted.
Yes. So we are currently working on that job description, and we hope to have that position filled. Yes, for the budgeted fiscal year.
Okay. Very good. Thank you, President Pro Tem Nartates. I don't have any other questions. Thank you, President Dominguez.
President Dominguez speaking. At this time, Councilor Burke, do you have any questions for Director Reyes?
Yes, this is Councilor Burke. Thank you very much, President Dominguez. Director Reyes, in his answer regarding the marketing budget, Director McBride spoke about $12,000 for a podcast. I know I've been listening to the podcast that we have been rolled out recently. So I just wondered if you could speak a little bit about that, you know, what the where it was budgeted for in last year's budget, and maybe speak to specifically the vendor that we're using for the production of that.
Right. So this is Director Reyes. So right now we are using the podcast, obviously, to get out information regarding the COVID-19. We're using that outreach tool and working with Brian Smith. So you know, it's almost like we're using it as an opportunity to also pilot if this is something that the city wants to do long term. So we are using Brian Smith, and it's called the Talk New London. And it's a podcast where the residents can hear from different department heads and community leaders on what's happening in the city of New London on topics that are current. A lot of the times with busy schedules, sometimes people are not don't have the time to.
So I wonder if either you or Director McBride could just give a summary of which of those are true reductions versus things that were consolidated to other departments.
Can you give me a line item? I don't have
Yeah,
the Bible.
sure. So for example, like office supplies is down $3,000. So I'm imagining that is just a reduction in office supplies. But I know in other department budgets, postage seems to be, consolidated to finance.
Correct.
And how about printing? Is that as well? Is that just down, or is that being consolidated elsewhere?
Shared. It was a shared cost.
Got it. Well, then that's all the questions I have for now. Thank you very much. This is Councilor Burke.
President Dominguez speaking. Thank you, Councilor Burke. I have questions for Director Reyes. Tab 52, where it comes down to other operating services, storage for evictions. I noticed that in fiscal year 2018, we had about close to maybe 7,500. And then for this year, we just budgeted 2,000, and it doesn't seem that we used any. Could you explain?
Yeah, so I will, and when it comes to evictions, and there's a special kind of formula behind that. Tom Barmbier, I have Tom Barmbier on the phone who can kind of speak a little bit more in detail on the CBDG side on those particular budgets, because a lot of that information is evaluated over a long period of time, not just within a particular fiscal year.
Okay, thank you. This is President Dominguez speaking. Tom Barmbier, you can go ahead and speak, sir.
Can you repeat the question? I'm thinking you said that there was a $7,000 expended this year and that there's only 2,000 budgeted?
President Dominguez speaking. No, 2 years ago, I noticed that it was 7,588 when it comes to storage for evictions. And then nothing in 2019, but we budgeted $2,000 for it. So I'm just thinking about the amount of money budgeted, but it wasn't used.
The Human Services Department has been managing the evictions, and so it could be in a different area of the budget.
Okay, this is President Dominguez.
As opposed to directly being managed by this office, Community Development. It got switched over to the Human Services Department. The position in Human Services that manages evictions is still under CDBG, but it could be, so it's CDBG funded, but it could be on another line instead of under ODP. That's the only answer I could have, because there are, evictions, and I'm sure there were expenses. I'm not sure where the money would be right now, where the information would be. I don't have a better answer than that.
This is Director Reyes. President Dominguez, I'll give you a little bit more flavor so everyone understands. In the CBDG, there are members that are salaried employees that are through our HUD funding. I
can email her later on, even though someone's going to be on for her later on, but I didn't get a chance to email that question to her, so not sure. I just wanted to know just the answer for it, but I can find out later on. That's it for me for my questions. I'm going to call now Councilor Dice. Do you have any questions for Director Reyes?
This is Councilor Dice, and I do, and it's on tab 42. I noticed when you was explaining that you're gonna social media and the podcast, but I didn't hear anything about the website. Where is that actually allocated for the cost for the website?
Good question. This is Director Reyes. So I had this communication with several of our residents and past forums. I know the website is a topic of conversation and improvements of that. The best way to answer that is that ODP had the marketing behind ODP is different from a city website. Our marketing efforts are more towards real estate development and small business recruitment, where like The city website is a communication tool for our residents. So that is not something that is budgeted through ODP, but through, I believe it's IT does that. But our office does not manage the actual city website. We actually have our own website, developmillen.com, which is managed through this budget.
This is Councilor Dice. So I just want to follow up with that, because I know one of the things that I have shared is that a lot of the new businesses that started up, they had found it was difficult to get started. And would you have a component on the website so new business starting up where they be able to get all the information and the things that they need to get started? So just something that I know we had talked about, and
is owed to you on that.
This is Councilor Dice. Just one thing, I just want to say thank you. I am so thankful that City Hall is looking good, but I appreciate how the team worked together to keep everything in budget to get it done. So Director Reyes, I'd like to say thank you, and to the team for taking different parts to make it happen. This is Councilor Dice. Thank you.
President Dominguez speaking. Thank you, Councilor Dice. At this time, I'm going to return back to Councilor Sadi with some questions. Councilor Sadi.
So the comments, thank you to Councilor Dice for pointing out that in the front of our book, it talks about those pages in our contents. It talks about housing conservation at 51, housing and community development 52. But when I turn to those tabs, it looks like there's special revenue funds. So I don't know whether or not Director McBride could talk on that. And while,
yeah, I'm not sure exactly what the question was.
Well, the contents in the front of the book talk about some of the agenda items being on tab 51, 52, and 53. But when you look them up in those areas, that's, I don't know if it was debt, hold on a minute. I believe debt service.
Items, I want to be very clear that you know, these items will essentially have to go out to the marketplace and tighten up. So those are just budgeted numbers. So
no, I understand that,
okay.
But I think that made up the 50,000 plus the $25,000 increase. So I'm trying to figure out what those were.
Okay.
I believe that's a question for follow-up to Director McBride.
Yeah, as Felix said, these are budgeted numbers, but there was social media allocation, 15,000, podcasts for 12,000.
And that's it for a total of 62?
No, economic development commission and workshops budget for 5,000.
Okay.
The city app for 12,000. And again, these are, you know, estimates, of course. But as I did take a note, I will be providing you detail to all of those components.
President Dominguez speaking. Councilor Sadi, I'm sorry to cut it short, but it's 6 o'clock already, a little after 6 o'clock, 6:01, and I want to stay on time and be mindful. There's other
I appreciate that, and I'm sorry to hear, but I do appreciate that. Thank you.
President Dominguez speaking. Thank you. Councilors, I know that sometimes there's a lot of time. But please, you know, email if you don't get the opportunity to ask you questions. Please make sure that you email them. Remember, the budget's not going to be approved. We're just listening right now, and eventually we have some time to caucus and talk about, and even to bring back some department heads if we wish to do so. Okay. So with that said, thank you, Director Reyes, for everything that you have done for the city, and just for being just a lover of our city, man, and everything that you're doing. We appreciate you and appreciate the staff that you have and the people that work alongside of you. So thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. At this time, we have the library. Mrs. Gupta, is she on now? Not sure then if we're gonna have to try to unmute everyone and then try to see if she's on. Oh, there she is. Yes.
Hello.
Hello, Mr. Gupta. You're on. This is the budget hearings, and you're on right now. We're gonna allow you at least 3 minutes to share about your department, and then I will open it up to the counselors to ask you questions.
Yep.
So welcome and thank you.
Thank you. Hope you and your families are doing well. Hello to all of you. I'm here to present the budget for the library, and I'm here to answer your questions. And if I'm unable to answer anything today, I will get back to you on that. First of all, I'd like to thank you all for your support and your positive comments for the library and the library staff. I really appreciate them, and our staff really needs that. We had a breakthrough year in many respects this time. In 2013, the library started losing hours, and by last year, we had lost 5.5 hours of operating hours. But last year, because of the generous support of the City Council and Mayor Passero, we were able to gain back 2 hours. We added those 2 hours on a Thursday evening, so we were open from 5 to 7 extra hours. Due to this, the overall program attendance increased. We did a lot of children's programs and teen programs on Thursday evenings, so the overall program attendance increased. And I did share with you the infographic that I had worked on, and that shows how much was the increase, and we collected all stats and we worked on them. There was a 35% increase in the meeting room use. There was a 36% increase in teen program attendance. When we saw this increase in teen program attendance, we got together and we saw there was a community need. So we started thinking about a teen department, a separate teen department. So we applied to the CDBG grant for remodeling an activity room into a teen area, so that we serve our teens the way we serve the children's room and the adult community. Our circulation increased by almost 15%. We created a job search club, and we just recently got awarded the Nonprofit of the Year award from the Chamber of Commerce of Eastern Connecticut. So these were some good things that we did. A key part of my philosophy as a library director is the idea of the library to be everywhere. And we have attended all outreaches. We have attended all school events. We have been a part of the TVCCA childcare and preschool centers. We have attended their literacy weeks. We have held library card signups outside of the library. We have been to Mitchell College. We have been to Benny Dover Jackson Middle School. We have worked with ISAC. We have attended their open house. We have been with LNM as partners. And we have also worked with Beechwood Post-Acute Transitional Care Center. We have provided them with a mobile library. So a staff member goes there to do programs and read short stories, and they take books to give it to them. So we are delivering books over there. Not at this point, but when we were open, we used to. We currently work with more than 45 community partners. This budget is covering the increase in cost for next year, but it's the major part we're asking for. We're asking for a 7% raise to have a dedicated teen department. A teen department to us means cost for programs, cost for a staff member, cost for material, and cost for books. So I've added that. When I met Mayor Passero, he told me to put that in a separate line item, which I did, and you'll see the breakup into teen room. So the extra is what I'm asking for teen room. In the past, we used to ask for $22,000 towards materials. It was never enough. How it was divided was $10,000 was towards the children's room, 10 was for adults, and $2,000 was for teen books. We were never able to update our collection, and the collection was very dated and was dying. Nobody would read a book which is old and which is out of sync now. So to add to that collection, I'm asking for another $10,000 for books for teen room. That the library changed itself, and now we are serving our patrons during this pandemic. On our website, you can access magazines, you can learn a language, and all of this is available 24/7 through our library card. And access to all of this is free with a free library card, which you, if you do not have one, we will give you one right now. I have also, with my attachment this morning, I also attached a flyer with all the events that we are doing currently. They're all on social media. We're keeping all our patrons engaged. All ages are engaged through either a New London history picture that we post as a throwback picture on a Thursday, through story times for children, through craft activities, and for DIY activities with minimal amount of material available at home. Those are posted every Wednesday. Tomorrow there is a children's story time, and then there is a children's activity where children will get together on Zoom and talk to a staff member and introduce their pets or a stuffed animal. So we're going to keep our community engaged through social media. Is there anything I can?
President Dominguez speaking. Thank you, Ms. Gupta. At this time, I'm going to know counselors. Counselors, we're kind of crushed on time. I'm going to try to modify that to one question per counselor. So I'm going to go with Councilor Goodwin Booker first, please.
Thank you, Council President. I'm assuming you met myself, Councilor Goodwin speaking here. Thank you, Director. I don't have questions at this time. I'm sure I can email you any questions that I have. I do want to thank you for your thorough presentation and your prior presentation on the Teen Center, and I hope to hear more about that. And I was happy to see the increase in the library expenses. Thanks.
Thank you.
President Dominguez speaking. Councilor Booker.
Yes, this is Councilor Booker. I want to say, thank you, President Dominguez, and also thank you, Director Gupta. I want to thank you very much for the work you're doing and your staff as well, all the hard work, and how you're able to move so quickly, and also just with our community and just create online services for everyone in the community as well. So thank you very much for all your work. No further questions at this moment.
Thank you.
Okay, Councilor President Pro Tem Nartatas, do you have any questions for Director Gupta?
Thank you. %. I know that back in 2013 we had to cut hours. You know, it's a sore spot for me. I talk about it very openly about that. We've been able to add 2 hours on Thursdays, but we are still missing. We're still missing 3.5 hours somewhere during the week, aren't we?
Right. It's a Wednesday morning. It's a Wednesday morning. And if this budget is approved, I have plans to open the library back up on Wednesday morning. So we will be operating all full hours. Thank you so much for your support in the past.
This is President Pro Tem, and I'm very.
At this time, Councilor Dice, do you have any questions for Director Gupta?
This is Councilor Dice, and I do not have any questions at this time, but thank you for forwarding us the information about the increase in services that you've been providing to our community. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
President Dominguez speaking. Thank you, Councilor Dice. At this time, Councilor Sadi, do you have any questions for Director Gupta?
Just a comment. Thank you very much for your email today that explained many of the good things that the library is doing. Similar to one of the other councils, I had a concern about the 7% increase, but my understanding is that money will be spent on the teen department, remodeling an activity room, and adding a staff member to the team for the teen as an assistant. And also, I guess you're going to spend a little bit more money on books. So
right. Until now, we just have $2,000 towards the teen books, and we were unable to do anything because it was a data and it was a dying collection. Nobody checked it out. So with the very little we had, we started buying books from eBay, which were gently used. The collection started looking good. At least we had things, but because it was eBay, some of the books were missing and some books were not in a very good condition for us to include them in the collection. So we really wanted books for the teens, for them to read, for them to check out.
again, thank you very much for all the work you do.
Thank you
This
so
is
much.
Counselor Sadi signing out.
Thank you.
President Dominguez speaking. I want to also echo the same sentiments as obviously all the councilors. Thank you, Director Gupta. I believe that since you arrived and were hired as the librarian, as the director there, you know what, the library's taken off and it's going the right place. Hopefully you'll get that money to open up those hours on Wednesday. Looking forward to that, and also looking forward to sharing with my students about the teen room there that's in progress. So very excited about that.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you for your support. I appreciate that. I'll pass your positive comments to my staff also. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. This is President Dominguez speaking. Okay, at this time, we will sign off for maybe a minute, and then we'll come back to City Clerk, which is tab 14. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Tab 5.